not too high, but yeah, there you go.
Okay, perfect. So, my name is Osvaldo COF, and before I begin, I just want to ask some of you, who here has ever shopped in Forever 21 and bought clothes? What about Macy's? Perfect. Okay, so the birth of the United States came about when the lower class England citizens, they migrated in search for better jobs, and they wanted to seek freedom from oppressions such as religion. And as a result, it allowed the United States to be born. This was the work of several immigrants looking for a better future and freedom. When we have such people, pushing to achieve these goals and pushing to, make a better society, better economic system, I wonder, is it not beneficial to allow these people to remain in these areas and, stay in this situation and allow the economy to grow and expand? That is why today I claim that the deportation of U.S. immigrants will lead to a much lower economic system, and I will prove that by showing that 1, deporting the immigrants from the U.S. poses a bigger financial burden for the U.S. government. 2, deporting immigrants from the U.S. will lower the workforce and negatively affect the economy. And 3, deporting immigrants from the U.S. leaves the economy with less opportunities to expand. So I will begin with my first claim. Deporting immigrants from the U.S. poses a bigger financial burden for the U.S. government. Many immigrants, as I don't know if many of you know this, but many immigrants move to the U.S., and they have children who become U.S.-born children. And deporting these immigrants will cause the children to be left behind in certain situations, and it can force the government to look after them. According to Stephen A. Camarota, the Director of Research for the Center of Immigration Studies, on April 2017, ICE reported that the average cost for the deportation was $10,854 in the fiscal year 2016, which included apprehension, detention, and processing. ICE reported that in 2016, the department apprehended 530,250 individuals nationwide and conducted 450,154 removals and returns. The total amount for the removal and returns is approximately $4,844,654,716. On December 31st, 2013, in the National Public Radio, Michael Martin was the host for Tell Me More, and he interviews Candy Mays, the director of the Dependency Legal Group of San Diego, which is a nonprofit law firm that represents many children of deportees in court, and also Jill Reblago, a reporter of KPBS in San Diego. Martin opens up the talk by saying that the number of undocumented people is 11 million, and 268,000 people have been deported in the year 2013. Most importantly, 5,000 people, which is the number of the estimated children who have been placed in foster care because their parents have been deported. Candy Mays tells the audience that kids go home to an empty house and can sometimes, when they're hungry, they go over to the neighbor's house. And if a parent doesn't make arrangements to have, a relative look after them or have child care, come and pick them up for them, it can be very hard for them to get back in touch with their children. And in this situation, when a parent is deported, it is very hard to communicate when, for example, if a person is deported back to Mexico, they have to go through their government, and the government then has to communicate with the government of the United States to get in contact with the children. And they don't have physical contact with their children for a very long time, so it's very hard for them to make their case and prove that they are capable of taking care of their children. Caseworkers try to reunify the children and search for relatives that can give a child a home, but if none is found, then they go to foster care system. And sometimes parents choose not to bring their children back to their home countries simply because of the violence that they will encounter, such as those from El Salvador and Honduras. Moving on to my second claim, that deporting immigrants from the U.S. will lower the workforce and negatively affect the economy. Most of the immigrants that come to the U.S. Would take up low-paying and undesirable jobs, such as farm work, factory work, and seamster jobs, which is why I asked you guys a question, who has bought, clothes from Forever 21 and Macy's. Personally, I have gone through this. My mom at some point has worked in making clothes for Forever 21. So clothes that some of us wear is made by people who, who make a living on these jobs, support people who want to have a better future. As Drew D. Silver said, the senior writer for Pew Research Center, and he writes that immigrants are more likely than U.S.-born workers to be employed in a number of specific jobs, including sewing machine operators, plasterers, and stokomasons, and manicurists. Immigrants, according to D. Silver, make up 17.1% of the total U.S. workforce. In 2014, which is about 27.6 million workers out of the 161.4 million. Roughly 46% of the immigrants' occupation consists of farming, fishing, and forestry, 26% of them being unauthorized immigrants, and 20% of them being lawful immigrants, such as deferred action for childhood arrivals and temporary protected status recipients. During that same year, fruit and vegetable producers have been experiencing a work shortage since Americans don't want to take the work for $12 a pay, and producers have asked Congress to consider issuing more agricultural worker visas. And my third claim, deporting immigrants from the U.S. leaves the economy with less opportunities to expand. So just on March 2nd, 2017, Jennifer Sanchez, who had her father deported, and because of that, Jennifer was forced to take care of her sisters. And approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants currently live in the U.S. and are responsible for about 3% of the gross domestic product nationwide, and double that figure in states like California and Texas. With that in mind, I would like to conclude that when we deport immigrants, we're forcing young people to take care of people, and it forces them to lose their jobs, to lose opportunities that they can take by going to college. And it would be better to not deport immigrants so as to allow the economy to expand, and that way it can be more beneficial to the U.S. and we would be saving money which can be spent in other areas. And just to finish off, going back to the peer research that I mentioned earlier, under the computer and mathematical science, 25% of immigrants work in this area, and 19% of those are lawful immigrants. If we had more lawful immigrants working, we would allow them and enable them to work in better jobs and allow the GDP to grow and overall allow the economy to expand. And with that, I would like to conclude my speech. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope you have a great day.
All right, you're rushing a little bit in the audience survey at the beginning. Your proposition is pretty clearly stated. There's a solid preview of what the supporting structure is going to be. As you get to the individual points, you signpost them pretty clearly. Sometimes the information under each of those points needs to be explained a little bit more. There was some assumptions that were being made, and you had some statistics that are being presented, but occasionally those numbers sort of ran together. At one point, I heard a number about 450,000 who were removed. Then I heard another number about 268,000 who were deported. There seems like it's a little bit of inconsistency there. There was 17% of one group and 26% of another group. Like I said, you need to pace yourself a little bit with some of the statistical information. Your whole third point is in overtime. I think you know that. So you probably want a little bit less of some of the information that you've got. Slow down on the statistics when you're presenting them and make clearer inferences. I think that third point probably could be combined with the second point instead of having it a separate point, and that would help you a bit. All right, I'm trying to be